So like, okay, so we got, we're in the hospital. They tell me my diagnosis and they say all that, and he leaves. And he's like, I'm gonna give you guys a moment, because the whole time I was just looking at him, and nobody really got to say anything or ask. He did ask questions, and everybody was like, no, we don't have a question. And he left. So then he left, and I looked at everybody. I was like, okay, it's gonna be fine. I don't want anybody freaking out. I saw my brother a little cry, so I kind of got emotional too, because it's my younger brother. To see him cry, it just kind of hurts me. And I told him there's nothing we can do now. And I was like, well, at least what we need to do is see what I need to do next. I was like, yeah, no, I have to get an MRI and a CT scan to make sure it's not anywhere else. And they were like, you're right. And I was like, okay. And I mean, my mom gave me a hug, and then Ebony gave me a kiss. And, we just kind of like hugged each other kind of thing. And we're like, okay. And then they were wheeling me out, and Ebony was like, because we had valeted our cars, there were 2 cars, and Ebony had to now leave for her, this is like 1 o'clock now, 1 p.m., and she's supposed to speak at 5, and she needs to be in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So we just walked out, and, my parents, it was funny because my brother actually drove me down to hit my parents' car, and I looked at him, and I was like, look, I think I'm not going to go home. And he's like, what are you going to go? I was like, I'm just going to go with them to Philadelphia. And he's like, what? And he's like, okay. And then so he wheels me towards Ebony, and she's like, what happened? Do you need help? I was like, no, I think I'm going to come with you. She's like, you are? And she's like, great, And I looked at my parents. They're like, oh, so you're going to, of course they heard me. So you're going to go to Philadelphia. I was like, yeah. I was like, I think I need some time to be with Eb, and I think it's important that you guys have some time alone as well. And I think let's have this weekend alone, have some time to think, and when we come back, we'll kind of reconvene. And they were like, my dad was like, that's the best idea. He's like, great, go do that. So then I saw them driving, and I see their heads in the back of the car, and we were behind them, and we had to take 495 to go to, 95 to go to Philly. And I saw their heads, and I was like, nobody's talking in that car. And it was like, yeah, nobody's talking. So then I was like, I called my sister. My sister was not there. So I called her and told her if she could like bring the kids and come spend the weekend with them. And told my brother if he could do that too. And they were like, yeah, they'll do that. So they all kind of spent the weekend here without me, and kind of went through their own all emotions. And I got to go with Eb, which was awesome, because I think Eb was happy because she didn't know. She didn't want to ask me because she knew I wanted to be with my mom at a time like this. But I think sometimes she feels like awkward asking me, it's weird. I think when you're in a lesbian relationship, especially when it's not really seen as a relationship, especially in my family, like I think my mom would say, oh, Zunaira's friend or Ebony's friend, like she doesn't put us together as a couple, so we don't really get that same respect sometimes, I have to like kind of earn it, like I have to tell her, no, this is how it's going to be, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I have to be like really put things to her, and she doesn't like it, but she was still like very uncomfortable with it. So I think Ebony was at that time, she didn't want to be like, Zunaira, no, you come with me to Philadelphia. She didn't want to ask me, but she was hoping that I would, Right. And it was funny because I knew I wanted to, and it was, so when I got in the car, she was like, thank you, I just wanted you, because I don't know, it would have been really hard for me to just drive and leave you back there, I wanted to be near you, and I'm like, yeah, I know. So we talked about, like, how we've had so much fun, we, like, traveled everywhere, and, we used to work for an airline, how we used to travel, and so we've been, like, all these places, and we're like, yeah, it's been good. And I said, I'm kind of glad I did all that. And she's like, yeah, me too. And then we talked about how, depending on how bad it is, we have to come up with a plan, like what we're really going to do and stuff. And she's like, yeah, you're right. And I told her, when we go to Philadelphia, I want to talk about this cancer, but I really don't, because I don't want to give that importance to it, And she's like, I understand that. So we got there. I had no clothes, so I went in like a shorts and t-shirt, because I'm going for a surgery. So that's what I went with, and a pillow, and I didn't have any clothes, nothing. So, like, I'm, like, now driving. So, it's not really worried about, like, toiletry stuff because Ebony had it, So, it's like, no big deal. So, there was a CVS. She went and bought me a toothbrush. And she bought me some shampoo because she usually uses a conditioner and it's different shampoo. So, she bought me some shampoo. And then she was like, just we'll go out later. This was after my speech. We'll go out later and get some clothes for you. And I'm like, okay. And then... I just stayed in the room. Like really, I just sat there, watched some TV. I watched like a lot of Fox News because I was just like these motherfuckers, like because I think I needed a thing to hate at that point. So it was like perfect, so I could just get on there and like really and be hating something because I just didn't know how to react honestly because it was just kind of big, it kind of came from nowhere and so I wasn't sure and so I did. I watched like Fox News for literally 4 hours, and then I was just realized how bitter I was, and I was just like, this is not how. I was like, if I have a little bit of time, this is not how I want to spend my time. Like then it just kind of came to me. I need to do something. So I went, ordered some room service.
Right.
So I got some food and
the filet mignon.
Actually, no, I ended up getting a salad. Yeah, because I think so I was a vegetarian, right? So I was a vegetarian. So I didn't really eat meat at that point. But it was just really a preference thing, like, and then I had like a big salad, and then I went and downstairs in my shorts and t-shirt I had wine, and then I see Ebony come around. She's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, just hanging out at the bar. She's like, well, we're gonna hang out here too. So I was like, well, that's fine. She's like, you're okay with like the way you are, right? You're comfortable. Like, do I need to do something? Do we need to go get clothes for you to change? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. So we just had some wine at the bar, and then we just got moved to the sofa in the lobbies, and we just kind of like, I just chilled and I drank. She bought me another bottle of wine. She went and got some stuff, and I just had wine, chilled out, and then it was just one of those things. It was a great weekend. I think it was a great weekend for me to realize that it was just not a big deal. Like, this is not over. The fight has begun, and I was ready for it, and I was pretty rejuvenated, and I think so was Ebony after that trip.
Cool.
And we came back. We were like in mood to do that, and I think it was interesting. I think my family kind of went through that same thing as well, and that through the weekend. So when I got back, I was like, okay, I have an appointment for this, and it was like, okay, CT scan came negative. Yes, one check. I conquered that. Then it was
and the
like
CT scan just said that you didn't have anywhere else in your body.
correct, right? So which was important. I was like, okay, yes, that's good. So now it's locally here, and then I need to deal with it. And then it was important for me to find a doctor. So through friends, and I found a doctor that I wanted to work with, and I love him dearly, Dr. Pribad. I just really love him. So I worked with him, which was hard to kind of get him, but luckily I had connections to get him. He called me from his vacation. He's like, I'll work you in. I'm like, yes, So so that was awesome to know that I'm going to see and I'm going to trust, because it's very important when you go through any kind of illness and you don't trust your physician, because then you're like, oh, did he do it right? Or if you would have done this, maybe I would have done that,
Right.
Because now I don't have a leg, but I have no doubt in my mind that my doctors, they did their best. Like, I don't blame them for this. I mean, I just know that, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You need to have that. And I didn't want to have any doubts. So it's very important to me that the doctor I picked had to be somebody that I knew that's going to do a job. And I mean, everybody, he's like a top oncologist and sarcoma specialist in DC. And I'm very lucky to even have him, here in this area. So I was so happy. So I went and saw him, and he took care of me.